Vanessa, we'll just go right down the line.
Sure.
And we'll-
Absolutely. Vanessa Nordyke, Salem City Council, Ward 7, and in my day job, Senior Assistant Attorney General at the Oregon Department of Justice Trial Division.
I'm Brent DeHart. I own Salem Aviation Fuel. That's the fueling concession at the Salem Airport, and the chair of the Fly Salem effort.
Good morning, Jeff Miller, Coldwell Banker Commercial and Chamber Board Member.
Good morning, Angie Oniwuchi with Travel Salem.
And I'm Alan Rasmussen with Modern System and President-elect of the Salem Chamber.
So again, thank you everyone for showing up this morning and for those who are online. We have been talking about commercial air service in Salem for a while now. Mr. DeHart to my right, your left, has been carrying a lot of water on that and is here to give a presentation of where we are and kind of give an update to the group. And so I'd like to turn it over to him and then we'll have the others chime in as we go. So with that, Brent, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And I forgot to mention my introduction, past president, Salem Area Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, it's been a while. I looked at some of the oldest documents we have, except for we've been doing this since 2017. So we're hit the 5-year mark on Fly Salem's effort. It was a great time to launch because it was right near the grounding of the 737 MAX. And then we went into a pandemic and then we went to pilot shortage. So it's been no problem at all. And then somebody invaded another country and it affected things. We've been operating basically on privately raised dollars, plus a grant from the Oregon Department of Aviation. It was $500,000 to help us recruit. Other airports like Medford went after the same type of grant to use for their incentive package, which turned out to be not legal. But we were the ones that said, hey, we need help because we don't have a funding mechanism to fund the effort to visiting with airlines and consultants. So that's how we have funded the effort, and with the help of Chamber and Travel Salem contributions, especially in terms of staff time and leadership. Angie's been traveling the country with me as well. I've now attended, I don't know how many, 8 or so conventions that are specifically designed for airports to recruit commercial service. Our passion is based on data, not just a love of community. We bought the data a couple of times. So it's a little big brother-ish, but everybody should know that in 2019, if you bought an airplane ticket, we know that you did with which credit card, from what zip code, where you flew and what you paid. So we know who in our region flew and where they went. So the demand is a known quantity, as if obviously it's extrapolated for post-pandemic. So the good news about that, and we did talk to Mayor Bennett, farewell, sir. And he said, you know, it's gonna be a really tough time with council and general fund support. Please don't ask for money. And we said, we're going to do this community with the community, privately raise money and the grant. And we have up till now, which will get us into the discussion. Our recruitment costs now have exceeded $250,000. So that's $250,000 that, which that honestly is on the cheap because I don't get paid and I go to these conventions on my own dollars. So that is the amount the private sector is in on this effort. The state's in for over $1 million between the grants and the money allocated from the legislature for equipment. And the federal government's invested in at $850,000. So you got the feds in with their money, the state's in with the money, the private sector has been betting on the come. And then the city, hopefully, when we generate a lot of new revenue, will be the recipient and the benefactor. So now, given that background, where are we right now and why has the conversation changed? Our goal all along was get a major carrier to major hub, especially for business travel. People like in Tom's former life need to get on an airplane, connect somewhere and be anywhere in the country. United to San Francisco to 100 locations, Alaska to Seattle to 100 locations. That was been the goal, and in my mind continues to be the long-term goal. It's not going to happen now because the major carriers, if you watch the news at all, they don't have any pilots and crew in general. They're having trouble staffing on the ground, in the aircraft, and certainly pilots. It takes 2 years to create a new airline pilot. So that pipeline is sorely understaffed. So United, American, Delta, they're canceling routes that are established and profitable. I'll give you an indication of what the industry's like. they're going to Peoria or wherever, and they're making money there, and they've been there they're canceling the routes because they don't have pilots to fly them. And they move those up to the larger markets. So that's the state of the industry. That's why, even though United to Denver might be an option for us in the future, that's 2 to 3 years out. We just got back and I listened to Regional Airlines Association woman speak about, we're producing about 6,000 or so commercial pilots a year. The need is 10,000 because of retirements. So mandatory in the US, age 65 retirement, and everyone who's Vietnam era came out of the military, they're all retiring. Mandatory. Now the FAA could help by moving to 65, 67. That's another conversation. So what's growing is the ultra low cost carrier, ULCC, ultra low cost carrier market. I had no idea. I don't fly Spirit. I don't know about you. I don't typically fly Allegiant, Frontier. Those are the ultra low cost carriers in the marketplace, amongst others. In Europe, ULCCs have 50% market share, and in America, they have like 25 to 30. So that's where the industry thinks the growth is going. They're very aggressive. They're growing. They have a ton of aircraft on order. They need dots on a map from which to fly them. So we've gotten a lot of attention, especially since the costs in Salem to operate are going to be a fraction of what it costs at PDX, especially after PDX's $2 billion investment, right? So we get a lot of attention from the ultra low cost carriers, virtually all of them, Angie, right? And then is the timing right? Do they have aircraft? One of the challenges that we've had in the recruitment is you have to find an airline that's expansion mode. Right now it's ULCCs. You have to find an airline that has actual aircraft and pilots to fly them. You have to find an aircraft that's expansion mode that flies somewhere you want to fly, right? That the market's going to support. And they have to have slots at that airport. That's a big problem. We're talking to American. For an example, LAX would be an ideal fit for us. American to LAX. They don't have any slots. They don't have any gate slots in order for capacity to put those in. To line up all those dominoes has taken us 5 years. We have all the dominoes falling with the carrier who wants to come next year. So they're looking at us as potentially Portland's or PDX's low-cost alternative. It's not at all inconceivable. The first 2 carriers to come to Salem will both be ULCCs. And you know, they fly to places, they make a living flying very inexpensively to people that where the sun shines. So the goal is still major carrier Marysville hub. But right now, to attract a low-cost carrier will be a huge start, especially if they give us the destinations that we want. And it helps us prove in the 2 to 3 mark to Alaska and United and so forth that we are supporting service and the planes are full. The one data point we have not had is this is how full the planes are leaving Salem, which most other communities already have that because they have minimal service or some service and they're looking to expand. The low-cost carrier will give us, hey, these planes are going out at 93% full, 95% full, 85% full. So that'll be great.
Can I say something really quick?
Please.
So this, just again to reiterate, this is a huge shift in our strategy. So we're not even really competing with Portland anymore in this new sort of brand position as a ULCC airport. So we have our own identity, we have our own market share. We have it's a really exciting position to be in post-COVID. And we didn't see it coming, but it's shifted there and could be considered Portland South. And maybe Brent will talk about that a little bit further. But this ULCC attention is serious. It's going to take us to the markets we want to go. And it's a great brand position to be in for Salem.
And in case any of you in their brain, you're asking the same question I asked. I did ask some of these low-cost carriers, how are you getting pilots, right? How are you able to expand and hire new pilots? And the answer was interesting. One, their pay is competitive, but more importantly, it's a much faster career up ramp to get to the left seat, to be a captain in a 737. My cousin did it with Delta and it took him 20 years. Some of these guys could do it in less than 2 if they sit in the right seat because of how fast these airlines are growing, the ULCC. So one, you can be a captain in an Airbus or a 737 very quickly in your career, and that's a great job and great money. And two, their pilots are home every night. It's a very different quality of life job than flying for Delta or United. They're not going on the road. They'll go, Phoenix to wherever and back, Phoenix to Des Moines and back, and they spend every night in Phoenix. So it's quality of life, it's career advancement, and a competitive, and that's how they're getting pilots when the majors are struggling. All right, so where are we right now? So we have a carrier who's very committed, very excited about the Mid-Valley. We tend to think of this as a regional effort. They're very excited in terms of being able to operate here, being able to draw some business from the southern suburbs even, in addition to our catchment area. Our catchment area is 650,000 people, 650,000 people as of the last sentence. Gosh darn it. Slow down, Brent. All right, census. Thank you, Jeff. You can correct all my misstatements. They want to start 2 destinations in May. Actually, they'd like to start earlier. They'd like to start in February, March, but that is not reasonable, feasible for us. The destinations would be LA Basin and Las Vegas, a couple of flights a week. It would be a 737-700. They also want to start Oakland and Phoenix in next year. Now,
And San Francisco as well. San Francisco
instead of Oakland?
in addition to,
Okay,
I mean, yeah.
let's just say LA Basin, San Francisco Bay Area, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. Oddly enough, those are our region's top 4 destinations. Talk about a perfect fit. So they would start with 2 flights a week. So you go out on Thursday to Vegas, you come back on Sunday. You go out on Friday, come back on Tuesday, that kind of schedule. But those are top 4 destinations. We know you guys are all flying to gamble. We bought the data. So, that's very exciting. And the fact that we could get 4 destinations in the same year, they have aircraft coming, they're going to slot them. And we need to be ready for them to slot in Salem or we could lose it. So that's on the table right now. There's another similar carrier, similar mode. And frankly, I think they would have been here already and beaten this carrier to the punch. And yes, we're under some non-disclosure agreements, but they're having some delivery delays in the aircraft that they're buying. They're brand new Airbus 220s, 3 levels of service for an ultra low cost carrier. It's pretty amazing, the value proposition. And we really thought they were going to come first, and they were pushed back because they're not getting their aircraft from Airbus fast enough. They may yet still come, right? There's other Frontier. I sat with Frontier a couple sessions ago and never heard of the Mid-Willamette Valley. Guys in Denver has never heard of the Mid-Willamette Valley, really doesn't know the market. We explain it to him. And he's like, well, we're going to get 150 aircraft in the next 5 years. I got to find places to put them. So some of his bells go off, and that's the education process we have been doing on behalf of the region that I think we're going to be on Frontier's radar. And of course, they fly to Denver and a billion places out of Denver, and Las Vegas and a billion places out of Las Vegas. Allegiant looked at us very hard. I think Allegiant would have been here already if it were not for the fact that PDX offered them 2 years free operation during the pandemic at PDX. So PDX is a great airport. I think we've all flown it. They said you can operate here for free. And they said, we'll take it. And so that's why Allegiant is there and their aircraft's there. I still think they're going to turn around and look at us as well. So you have these things lined up. And as the first service gets successful, this is anticipated to roll. What we'd like to see is a couple flights a day, right? Not a couple of flights a week, but we think they're all going to grow to a couple of flights a day. We're not a Southwest market. Southwest would be 3 flights a day in a 737. We don't have that kind of demographic. So for some reason, they're in Eugene, but I can't explain that. All right, so now what we're faced is we've been successful in recruiting. Yay. So they want to start in May. The timeline is critical because of the seasonality. Some of these destinations are more seasonally sensitive than others. And we don't want to launch in the winter and have it not go well. They don't want to launch. They want to launch at the beginning of a travel season so that it's easier to get critical mass of public perception and knowledge and usage and word of mouth. So it has to be the spring. Because if it's not made, they're going to slot that airplane into another city. That is the urgency that we're dealing with, is the terminal now is not ready to screen TSA passengers. And the reason for that is TSA's equipment has changed since 2008, 2009. It's longer, it's broader. I haven't seen the data on it, but TSA conferred with the airport manager and the consultants and said, well, we didn't need this many square feet. And so there needs to be some internal modifications so TSA can screen the baggage, the carry-ons and the people, right? That takes up a little more space. And how many people in here flew Delta when they were here? So you know the chute we go through, and it's very simple. There are 50-seat aircraft, and that is the aircraft we're talking now is 147 seats. So 3 times as many people. We need to get them through for a lot of people arriving 1 hour flight, right? So some internal modifications have to be done. The staff petitioned their consultant to get a report. We got it this summer. And I think there's going to be some graphics that Zachary will provide us and the people on Zoom. And unfortunately, what Angie and I requested was, what is the minimum we have to do to get TSA? Because we know it's a budgetary item. What do we have to do to TSA so that the plane can take off and land? What we got was a full build out. What we got is ideally you're going to want. It would be better for the passenger if. And so that came in and the council was told, and you saw it in the news, $10 to $12 million. We disagreed with the many aspects of the report, including the scope of the work. But we have scaled back through the leadership of council, now Mayor Hoy, Councilor Nordyke. Really appreciated her leadership in this. And I want everybody who's listening to understand the council has been very supportive of this. The council has been very supportive. Every vote having to do with the airport this year has had at least 8 votes out of 9. Sometimes it was 8 out of 8, sometimes it was 8 out of 9, every vote coming out of the airport. The problem is the staff has not let the council vote on very much yet. So now we are voting on, hey, can we do the minimum requirements the airline says it needs to put the equipment in? That's what a hurdle is. And now we have to do it really quickly because it's November and we need to start construction in the spring. And we need to be ready by the 1st of May. So that's a challenge. I'm going to turn this over to Alan. He's been talking to city engineers and the consultants and the staff for his perspective on what is on the table as option 1 right now. Alan?
Yeah, so it's been quite a journey the last month. There's been many hours spent between the fly safe, Tom, Angie, Brent, myself, Zach. And there's 2 options. If you listen to city council last week, there's been discussions about 2 options. Option 1 is based on just getting up and going. Take the terminal as it sits that was in place in 2007, do some interior TI modifications and get it up and going. No one will agree, or everyone will agree, that that's not the most ideal passenger experience. But the city council in their wisdom is, let's get up and going. Let's spend as little money as we can, get up and going, get an airline in here, signing a lease, and let's get going. And then we can move to improving that passenger experience. And that's what they call option 2. So option 1, interior modifications, such as upgrading some of the existing bathrooms for ADA, some walls and the bag screening areas you can see there on the right. There's a simple metal canopy outside to shield when they bring the bags in. Some other wall modifications, some electrical modifications in the passenger screening area for the wave limiter machine, some of that heavy electrically demanding equipment, the x-ray machine, whatnot. Also that machine equipment is very heavy. Mead and Hunt shared with me some of the cut sheets. I've had my structural engineer do some analysis of that existing wood frame floor, and some of the modifications we'd have to do to the floor is very minor to accept the weight of those machines. So that's option 1.
Sorry, I don't personally know what I'm looking at here.
Okay.
Can you point out what?
Can we zoom in potentially? Whoever is controlling, thank you.
So this is the existing stick-built airport. This up here, oh, sorry, that was built, I think, in the 50s or 60s. And then in 2006-07, when we added Delta, this modular building was added. And so what we're talking about is some ADA upgrades here, a metal canopy here for where they're going to bring bags, some interior, walls and modifications here, a little modification, some walls and whatnot through here, and then some electrical and structural floor modifications here for the TSA equipment. That's option one. We haven't got like an actual cost estimate of that. My personal opinion, that's been somewhat a little bit frustrating, that some of that scope of work hasn't been kind of detailed and explained. And people in this room could easily start putting some very decent ROMs to that work. ROM is a rough order of magnitude cost to give the council, give the community an idea of what this option one would cost. Option two, do you have that graphic?
Yep.
Option two. Oh, no problem. Option two is improving the passenger experience. This is an older design of option two. Option two now is about 2,200 square feet of modular expansion here, another 2,200 square feet of modular expansion over here that could be done very quickly, very cost efficiently. That would improve that passenger experience by adding the square footage needed to have plenty of waiting area over here, TSA check-in right down through the middle, and then arrivals would be here, and then you would go over here to leave. It would take the bag, pick it up and put it over here. So
There's that on here too.
yeah, that's a version of it. It's been modified since that,
Okay.
but it gives you the idea. There would be some additional space here and some additional space added onto the existing modular building. And so the city's consultant, Mead and Hunt, architect that specializes in this type of work, had put together these two options. They put together some design only cost proposals, and that was what was presented at City Council last week. It was about $120,000 or so for option one to design that, and that was to take it up through and permit it. There had been some talks with various people about option two and doing that concurrently. And we think there might be some really good value in doing that, is doing the planning, permitting, and design of option two while you're doing option one. And the reason why is you'd have a shovel-ready project. You get the airline in here and go, wow, this is great, but we need a better passenger experience. We need this space. Then you would go into a whole nother, 4 or 5 months, 6 months of design in the FAA process to add that square footage. We think it'd be very prudent to do that now. So come May, you want to proceed with adding square footage and space to improve that passenger experience. It's already planned, permitted, and ready to go. The city could issue an RFP or a contract and get that work done. So that's something that I think we're having more discussions on and would like to see happen, is that option two is designed and permitted concurrently. As Brent kind of mentioned, the original staff report came out, that was kind of that design, came out at like $10 or $12 million. There was a lot of discussions with staff, city staff about, hey, we think this number could be in this range. And so that's where they've gotten to now, is an idea of $5 to $6 million. So the last piece right now, they're going to go through this whole process between now and April, May to design and permit, then be ready to cover full cost. We think that costing could be done kind of concurrently, while more of the scope and the requirements come to be known, that we could get that cost, and that could be reported in the coming months to City Council. And then eventually some of that stuff, we don't need to wait for FAA to go, upgrade the bathrooms for ADA. We don't need to wait for FAA if we want to put that canopy out at bag screening. We don't need to wait completely to upgrade the floor or do some electrical modifications in the building. That can be designed in the coming 60 days. That could be submitted to the city building department to be permitted and completed if the city council saw wisdom in that type of concurrent work activity. So those are other discussions and suggestions we would be giving to this work team. One other note, there was discussions in the last city council meeting about prioritizing this. I mean, the time is of the essence. This is our opportunity to bring airline in and see it grow for the economic development of this group or of this community. And so there was discussion about prioritizing the planning, the permitting inside the city. That'll have to be a directive that the city council gives staff, you know, and I would entertain, comments and thoughts about if that project, the planning or the permitting review got put in front of one of Rich's projects, for example. We would appreciate your cooperation. But those are going to be the decisions that the city council is going to have to make, because staff's going to go, we haven't typically ever done that. It's first in, first out. And that's going to have to be a decision they come to make.
You would think you could get more to expand permitting processes if like you did to design work a couple times, or there's one time and something. Brown district permit.
Within every 6 months, you call her inspection.
But there are limits on it.
The idea of concurrent, I mean, in a perfect world from Fly Salem's perspective, the perfect idea would be doing option 2 planning and permitting concurrently. It was about a $70,000 ad to do that scope of work. And we see that as a great return on investment to have that shovel ready project to pull whenever you want. I would caution that it be designed under the new Oregon code that goes into effect on January 1. They're not going to really start enforcing it till April. What Building Codes Division has been telling me. They're going to allow a grace period. But the concept would be, in a perfect world, what we'd like to see is get that airline going in May. And then maybe over the summer and by third quarter, early fourth quarter of 23, you've already installed the terminal expansion. So those extensions, I don't think would drag on years. I think it would be, I would hope and want to see that within inside a year.
Alan, real quick, just a quick question, not trying to interrupt the flow here. I just want to go back. What I heard you say is option 1, restroom upgrades, interior walls, electrical flooring upgrades. Option 2 would be that stuff plus approximately 4,400 square feet, 2,200. But then I also thought I heard you say something like $10 million, which seems ridiculous. So I'm wondering if we could just dissect that for a
So
second.
$10 million was in the original report this summer. And that was more based on, and the architect said this is what you would want to see. And we all agree.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We would all agree that we would love to build a beautiful Redmond-like terminal. And someday the goal is that this would be a success. And someday we will build that terminal in Salem, Oregon. This is to spend the most cost-efficient way, because the city's got to put a lot of skin in this game, and is to build it as cost-efficient as possible, start making the city money, proof of concept, have some success. And then someday, and Brent can speak to this, once you have airlines operating, the FAA starts throwing money at you. And there will be a day where we could make a decision in 5-7 years from now to build a beautiful stick-built facility that would cost in that type of price range. I've worked with, I've been on lots of meetings with John Pascal and Mead and Hunt. And so we're very eager to kind of hear some of these details of what this scope of work really is. They allude to it, but and Councilor Nordyke said to ask me in council, is the private community, the chamber community, the Fly Salem community, are they going to be ready to assist the city in this? And I stand or sit here very confidently knowing everyone in this room would be more than happy to support this, that we would love to have a public-private partnership in making this a reality.
If I could jump in, thank you, Alan.
Yep.
now that Jeff, the estimates are $5 to $6 million, we're still saying, where are you going to spend it? We're still like, we don't understand. So the staff report now is saying 4 months to design, to have design and those, which Alan, and when he's being frank, he says, these are minor tenant improvements. Well, we don't understand why it takes 4 months to design and a month and a half for permitting. And if you missed it, you may not have time to go back to watch the council meeting, but it was a piece of arch history when Councilor Nordike asked the staff, but couldn't you prioritize it? And I've taken a lot of umbrage as a former city councilor on their behalf, unfairly so probably, but it does seem as though the staff is almost patting the council on the head. And that's my own, that's a Brent thing. It's not a chamber thing, but like, oh, well, you just don't understand. And I felt they gave her a little bit of attitude that I grinned like, yeah, you just know that's not how we do it. And Councilor Nordike said, yeah, but you could. And I'm in my office at home going, woohoo, and way to go, Vanessa. And yeah, but you could if you were directed to, and that's it. A month and a half for a permit for when we don't have a month and a half, and it makes the difference of whether or not the region gets air service or not. So, and to those numbers, the Mead and Hunt consultants were quoting $800 to $900 a square foot for this. And yeah, okay, I'll let that, yeah, $800 to $900 a square foot. So that's where you're getting those numbers. And Alan has been forthcoming with staff. I'm not sharing his industry secrets, but he gave him a quote to do an expansion of that goldenrod color. And let me say it was a fraction of that.
Are you talking about the gate seating or the ADA and access?
The gate seating area.
Yeah.
And yeah, and
I
both.
want to
of
make
them.
sure we're on the same page what goldenrod is. So.
Oh, thank you.
Just to that point, $5 million divided by 4,400 square feet, give or take some other things, Rich, you can jump in, is $1,136 a square foot. To your point, I don't think that's, I'm not a builder, but it seems like that's.
I will step in that mean, I think. I am fairly confident Mead and Hunt is trying to, set the bar. This is what the GMP would be. And they don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And they want to do the opposite of that. And I think that I'm excited for the next 60 days because I hope that they get right to work and they start crystallizing some of this scope of work. It's been very vague, like kind of, well, what's this mean? What is it you really need to do? What's TSA, FAA telling you have to do? So the next 60 days are going to be very key to like seeing some of this crystallize to what that actual scope of work is and allowing partners in this community that know how to go get that price like that. I mean, the aluminum or metal powder coated canopy was something I, called. I have the quote sitting on my desk. I mean, those are things the private community can sit and do to help the city and their consultants put together a price for what this option 1 or option 2 would cost. There's a lot of unknowns. They keep saying, well, FAA is going to guide us and tell us what we have to do. And I fully believe that. But it's going to have to be done concurrently as they're feeding you information. Let's start filling the lines of our schedule of values. That's what needs to happen. We can't wait to the end and finally put a schedule of values and present it to council on April 30th. It'll be too late. We have to try to find a way to start filling out that schedule of values, giving out some directives and getting the work done between say March 1 and April 30th.
Thank you, Alan. And Alan's talking, he's saying FAA, but it's really TSA. The staff is saying this is a slow process because we have to coordinate with the TSA.
Mm-hmm.
But to Alan's statement, only the purple is TSA. Everything else can start right now. It just doesn't, our perspective is that heretofore, the staff has not looked for solutions. We need an ADA bathroom upgrade. Okay, have somebody CAD drawing it out and do it. That kind of thing. And the seafoam, color as well.
Nice. Very nice.
Thank you. And the light green, what do you want to call that? The key lime pie color. To us, that's like, you want to do it inexpensively quick. That should be ropes and stanchions. It's queuing area. Why would you move a wall to create them all if you're just putting in queuing? So ropes and stanchions are fine at PDX. Let's do that.
So Brett, real quick, or Kelly, you had a question?
So which department within the city has purview over this?
It's been under the urban development department. The airport is part of the urban development. I think in the future, if we look into the future, when Brent Long retired, I think the airport will have its own director. It'll be a department of that stature.
I would add, though, I think maybe Peter can clarify that I think they're tasking like the city engineers, like Brian Martin's team, to run this. And I've sat down with Brian and his colleague Alan and Mead and Hunt, and we've had some discussions, and we hope to be invited to listen in and add, knowledge and answer questions where we can as they work through this next, 120, 150 days.
Yeah, so option one that the council has now put forward is going to be managed by Public Works. And in my mind, that's a big improvement. So it's been a frustrating process this year. All voices are saying, I'm going to get back to you, Rich. All voices are saying, do the cheap one. The airline is saying it. The airline is saying, Salem, don't spend any money on us. Make sure the TSA can get there and we will cope with everything else. Our consultant is saying the thing and Fly Salem is saying the same thing. So it's been a very strange situation where we're like, don't spend the money yet, let them prove it, fill the airplanes, generate new revenue, get firm costs, and then grow as the service grows. So that's been pretty universal. So for the business, private, aviation community to say, don't spend the money and have staff continue to tell the council that they have to spend the money has been a very uncomfortable delay that we've had. I'm a concrete person, so I don't like squishy language. We've been getting language like, well, you run into occupancy problems. And to me, it's we have this many square feet and our fire marshal has determined based on, regulation, blah. And none of that has been forthcoming. So that is what we've been dealing with and getting this done in a timely manner. And now we're in a crunch and the council has to deal with it. And the other question is, they get a lot of, well, we don't know yet. And Mead and Hunt was contracted to do this in last winter. And they were working on it. And she was very, very animated in the city manager's office about prioritize it. They tell you it's 6 weeks, we need it in 3. And that report came out in July. So the prioritization, we have not done well in getting staff to prioritize it. And we haven't done really well in getting the staff to put it in front of the council to vote on, as I said before. So we're getting highest possible costs, right? Lowest imaginable income. Numbers that when I crunch them are bizarrely low. But they're coming from staff, as this is what we're looking at, which projects $1 million losses in operations every year. Longest possible pipeline, and a strong emphasis on spending general fund money, as if it's saying you don't have general fund. This is contrary to your goals, which we all recognize, the city council goals and the homeless and public safety and so forth. But when there's other sources that have not really been fully brought out. So items, reports were delayed. Then they're converted to, in April, we had a condition where they're converted to non-action items. And through the leadership of a couple of counselors, we have a couple very routine things passed. So that's what we're kind of dealing with in terms of how do we go from that gear to the gear that gets the construction done before May 1st. So I'm going to, one more thing. It's just hard to get the council to understand because I live this thing every day, right? Every week, every month. And it's hard for the council has to weigh 100 different things to understand the urgency. I think Mayor Hoy, he doesn't understand that it took 4 years to get here and all the dominoes have fallen, and then maybe another 4 years. And frankly, we're not going to, Fly Salem's not going to be around another 4 years if we're not successful. So the urgency is real. The airport manager has been saying the airline will just wait if we're not done for July, and no, they won't. I'm telling you, everybody in this room, the airline's not waiting. The airline has told us and been very, very firm. They're not waiting. And they're going to have to know 6 months ahead of time whether the council is committed to it, because they have to report to the FAA that they're going to start a new route. They have to tell the TSA to put the equipment in. This is a huge lead time. So the city of Salem has not provided that early. Then they're going to go, well, they're ready over here, and they're going to move. So the urgency has been a hurdle. The payoff of investment, and you all have these handouts, and I hope you have an opportunity to glance in the highlighted sections. The payoff in the investment is phenomenal. The council takes a lot of risks with a lot of public money, but not all of them pay back in spades, economic development potential, and actually revenue generation. Because none of the airports in Oregon that have commercial service are losing money. Let's just say that. So to project that we're going to is something else. All right, Angie, finally, you've been so patient. We want to talk about a little bit of what it means for the tourism sector, for the visitor sector, and economic development in general. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm very new to this entire airline ecosystem, much like you. It's a world I didn't understand. Dove headfirst in, and it's been fascinating. 4 years ago, we were told the airport was ready to go, drop in a screener, we're ready to go. That's what we've told all the airlines. When we used to go to these conferences, who's Salem? Don't really know. It took a lot of work, a lot of numbers, a lot of convincing. And now when we go to these trade shows, like, where's Salem? We want to talk to Salem. Been wanting to talk to you, really excited about your market. So huge progress, and it's paying off. We have airlines that want to come here. Very exciting. The urgency is very, very real. When May comes and that airline has planes they want to put in the market, if this market isn't ready, they're going to put them somewhere else, period. So this is something that we have to be very diligent about. We will lose this opportunity. This is a once in a career type of opportunity. Our consultant, Jack Jennings, has 8 markets under his belt. We just came from the Takeoff conference. More than half, he's thinking 60–70% of his accounts are shedding service, terminating service. And so he was in crisis mode trying to save service in all of these markets. The position that Salem is in completely wholly unique. He's not seen it. He said, I can't believe how exciting it is for your market. Why aren't you guys responding? There are people across the country that would be just head over heels with the opportunity before you. I'd like to put this in the perspective of that Salem can be a really incredible airline market. San Luis Obispo, California, which is half the size of this market, had 22 flights a day prior to COVID. They put $3 million in MRG money, $1.5 million toward marketing every year. That is their package. That's their incentive they offer the airlines to come down there. They're half the size that we are. Incredible opportunity we have, and we will grow meteorically here. I personally, I know we here in this room are very excited about the outbound opportunities where we can connect our community to the world, but I'm focused on the inbound opportunities, the destination markets that want to come into Oregon's wine country and blow up this market with their discretionary dollars. So my focus is on driving economic impact to our business community. So that's why I've been involved, and the sort of the perspective that I represent. The airport can be flown the way it is currently. The airline that wants to come in here says, just tell me I can go and we'll fly. So we're really focused on May 1, getting the very minimal upgrades needed, which is the TSA equipment, the bathrooms, call it good, let's start flying. There's a lot of opportunity that I personally can't capture in the tourism sector until we have commercial air service here. We go to trade shows and pitch conventions to come into the market. We pitch tournaments and sports events to come into the market. They're like, when you guys have air service and we don't have to go fly into PDX and figure out transportation an hour and a half back down into your market, we will be there. Put us on the waiting list, call us when you get service. There's tremendous opportunity. Let's just talk Ironman for a second. The majority of our Ironman competitors, and we have 3,400 of them come in this market, the majority of them come from the LA basin. Can you imagine them flying just directly into our market? It would be huge.
You told a story
Oh,
about Salem FC. Remember, was
Yeah.
that you? I mean, I thought that
Actually,
was.
Scott Snyder talked about
Oh,
that.
okay, it was Scott,
Yeah, so the CFC soccer complex out on State Street, they have one of only 4 FIFA approved turf sites in the country. I mean, there's so many exciting opportunities. The new revenue potential in terms of TOT, which is the transient occupancy tax, the airport revenues itself from tenant revenues, from parking, the grants. Once we start flying and we enplane 10,000 passengers, which is not going to be a problem, we will get another $1 million from the feds for infrastructural upgrades. I mean, it's just it opens an entire new world to us. Our consultant has told us that each flight that comes out of our airport is going to have 60 direct jobs. It will create 60 direct jobs. If what Brent was saying, we have LA Basin, the San Francisco Basin, sorry about that, Brent, Phoenix, Vegas, that's 4. That's 240 direct jobs created from the airport immediately, and not just all of the, the rippling effect of job creation that service will have. This carrier that's planning to come in wants to hub here, meaning they keep planes on the ground here, they keep crews on the ground here. That means those pilots, the flight attendants, all the support crew stay in this market. We currently shed so many corporate accounts that that are flying in and out of this market. They have to head back out for the weekend. They go up to Portland Thursday night and stay in Portland because they don't want to miss their flight to Portland that morning. We will capture all of those corporate overnights here that will stay a Thursday night here, fly out of here on Friday. So just Redmond, I'd like to mention really quick, Redmond Airport, tiny little thing. They're investing $100 million in terminal upgrades. Redmond, $100 million. That's how serious this business is. That's the economic impact. The numbers are exponential. Companies will expand and will locate here. Tourism is the front door to economic development in our community. Executives that come here on vacation or for a day trip here. Man, this community is amazing. I want to move here. I want to relocate my business here. That happens constantly. Can you imagine how that will happen when we have direct service here?
And Angie,
Yeah.
to the 100 million, that's all aviation money.
Yeah, sorry.
That's FAA grants and the money generated on the field. So that's bigger than our public safety building, people. Redmond, Oregon, right? Redmond, Bend, to be fair. But that's the kind of scope that the new revenue and the money that comes in the Mid-Valley through the federal money comes in. So that's all aviation money. That's not general fund. That's not utility. That's all aviation generated money primarily. We're going to see if we have time for questions, but Councilor Nodak has been extremely patient, and I'm sorry we didn't give you more time, but we want to hear from Councilor Nordyke in the council perspective.
Sure, absolutely. So about a year ago, I was told the airport was turnkey ready. And so we have learned that, to be fair to the city staff, that was before FAA came out, and they indicated that the requirements have changed since the last time we had commercial service here. My position is I want commercial air service. I'm one of those many people who understands those travelers and that tourism drive. And that's why I made a motion to dedicate city funds to move forward with this permitting design process as soon as possible. And I did put a goal on it. I put a goal of May 1, but honestly, I'd like to see it much, much sooner than that. And I intend on meeting with the city attorney and staff every 2 weeks to check in on their progress, to ask hard questions, and to do what I can to expedite things. That's what I want to do. I think that they said everything that really needs to be said on that. I've asked that we have construction done concurrently with design and permitting whenever possible. I have asked that we consider increasing our parking revenue from a meager $5 a day to something that seems more market current. I've asked that if we want to invest in expanding the parking lot, what is wrong with gravel in the interim? There are gravel parking lots all over the city that are city owned. And believe me, my constituents complain about the gravel parking lots all the time. So I'm well aware of which ones. So there already is a precedent for that. There is a precedent for doing things on a shoestring budget when it makes sense to do so. And this is when it makes sense to do so. There are times when it makes sense for business as usual, when it comes to permitting, waiting in line. This is not one of those moments, and that's what I told our staff. Counselor Gonzalez has been asking great questions during council meetings. Perhaps it's because he has a small business background. That's one of the reasons why I'm so thrilled to see Julie Hoy join me on council, because we need a business perspective on council for these very reasons. So I've been getting a crash course, if you'll forgive the figure of speech, on construction, on airports, on pilots. That's not my bailiwick, but I want to learn because I understand that time is of the essence. So I will be pushing my peers on council to make sure that they share this sense of urgency. And I want to empower our staff to recognize that what can we do to innovate? What can we do to work with our private partners to make this happen ASAP? So I see enormous benefits from this. And I've been in a variety of airports. Some are the Taj Mahal of airports, and some are like that airport I went to in Santa Rosa, California with my mother for a wine tasting trip, where the baggage claim was outdoors under a tent. Did I think that was ideal? No, but I didn't care. I was there to grab my luggage and go on my wine tasting trip with my mom. And I love wine tasting in this area. Frankly, yes, City of Salem should invest in it. And that's why I made the motion that we invest in it. The City of Salem is not the only governmental entity that would benefit from this revenue, I would say. Marion County, Yamhill County, Hello Wine Country, Polk County, Grand Ronde. I think all these entities will benefit enormously if the city gets a better airport. How many people you think will go to the casino if they can fly into Salem, for example? How many more people will go to and from the coast, for example? So, I would love to see, of course, I want my city to pony up some money, and that's why I asked that we do so. And frankly, I respectfully disagree with the former mayor. I didn't know he was saying, don't ask for money. Ask me for money. I'm okay with that. This seems like a no-brainer to me. So I'm happy to help, and I want to stay in touch with the chamber on this as we move forward, because this needs to be done as soon as possible. And I want to empower our staff. Our staff work extremely hard. There's a reason why our airport is in as good of a condition as it is today. That doesn't happen by accident. That does take active maintenance. That takes around the ground support and leadership. That's why airlines are considering our airport in the first place. So I want to give kudos to the staff for doing that. But it's go time, and I want to help get this over the finish line, and I will encourage my peers to support it.
Thank you, Councilor. And I personally just thank you for your leadership and asking the hard questions. Everybody likes to be nice. And unfortunately, when there's things that border on some words I don't want to say out loud, to ask hard questions is uncomfortable. So I appreciate that. I wanted to get Rich perspective just before we close, maybe for the councilor's benefit, in terms of, you do this all day long for a living, you have for 20+ years. 4 months for designing a TI, a month and a half of permitting. We've heard your reaction to the dollar cost. Rich Duncan Construction, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've been screaming as loud as I can to tell you for certainly the last 5 years, maybe even longer, the city staff has changed in its missions, right? It doesn't understand the value of a job, doesn't understand economic development, it understands feelings and restrictions, right? What roadblocks do we need to put in place, or what should we put in place? Things, I guess, value their job. So with that being said, there was a day when things happened and rolled in this town that needed to happen, right? There was a time when there was a specific task force that was put together, and when we wined and dined a specific entity to come to town, a special task force was put together with the city staff, and they went and they hand delivered that package of the project through the whole project. I can tell you that we don't have Titanium to come to town, but when we did the tree makeover project, the day that I said that I would look at the project, 43 days later, we built the project and we did it in 141 hours. And we had staff on for inspections 24/7. We had a staff, somebody on site doing inspections for that job. What economic revenue was the treatment? I mean, that's not lasting economic, that was just a one project, but we were able to design, build, and go through that process. And everybody leaned in and it got done. And something like this, when you see the economic impact and the longevity of that, I mean, this changes the trajectory for our parks, for our fire trucks, for our police station, because of the economic impact that this makes. And city staff is going to say, I'm sorry, city council is the boss, right? The staff. If a person can't do the job, get rid of them. That's your job. It's my job as an owner of a company. I'm not going to have staff that tells me we can't get projects. So I need to, I think that we have to kind of change that tone and say, Dan Taylor would make a couple phone calls and, people's positions would change within the city pretty fast if they weren't there to make this happen. So I just get really caught up in this whole process of saying, I need this time, I need to hire another consultant. We don't need a consultant to tell us how to remote that.
Yeah, amen.
To build a model, you don't need that, right? Okay, I might need some help, somebody tell me how heavy an X-ray machine is, but I certainly can work on great animation so we can hold it up. So I think that we would have great excitement in the community, especially in the building community, to rally around a project like this and get it done. I think we just need the city to get out of our way. I mean, staff. I don't see a reason that we're so gun shy about saying I can get done because I don't want to get in my job. I don't want to get in trouble because we didn't spec the right lever, right? And I think there's just a lot of that fear in city staff that we have to cross all the T's and dot all the I's before we even think about starting. And then, again, in my world, we can't do that. We would go out of business if we weren't out on the job, reacting to situations and overcoming challenges and getting that job. So, I look at this base project and we do this every day. A ton of companies do this every day. Right here in town.
5.5 months just to design and permit.
I think that's pretty simple. I think that, yeah. Well, it's sufficient. I can hand to the city today and they can look at it and they can probably give us a permit over the counter for a TV permit. I mean, I don't need to have an engineer design the bathroom. The canopy could be completely, and you can separate these things out and we can get into whatever. There's ways about it, is all I'm saying. There's ways to fraction the job or scope the job. We would never want to call one of these rooms a plastic room. We're going to call it a break room, right? There's just different classifications that take it out of that page of the code and push it into a different page of the code. So we want to find those pages within the code that make this work. And they're there. So I can say we moved a mountain and this came together into a project, for a school. For the whole community.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be easy to do.
Thank you, Rich. Tom?
Well, I want to, first of all, I've been walking this path since my day to hire. In fact, one of the first things when Kurt and the team brought me in for my overview of what life would look like, they handed me our grant and said you'll be the
Yes, I do.
administrator of this and you need to get air service. We are on the precipice of something very significant for this community. And it is predictable that individuals like Angie and I would be loud and proud for this because we need economic development mechanisms in our community to keep the vibrancy and health and not be stagnant and look for longer term plays for generating dollars for this community. Because oftentimes when the dollars are not there, where does the target switch to? It's to the business community. And so we really feel we are on the precipice of something special. It is noticeable that we do not have a city staff member on our panel today. And I'm part of an update, 2 o'clock from the city manager, Staley. Keith is going to be giving me an update on where we are at on this process. And I'm going to very intentionally invite at least elect Alan to join me, if not Angie and Brent, but I want to be respectful of what city manager Staley is looking to accomplish. Feel that out. But it is going to be imperative that our counselors drive this timeline. And Counselor Nordike, her willingness to be engaging with staff every 2 weeks is pivotal. And it is how this will get done or how it will exactly not be done. And so I just want to thank Vanessa for that. I want to thank Jose for being incredibly inquisitive during the process. Councilor Phillips for being openly willing to invest. Mayor Hoy for being supporting process. This is not, from my perspective, quite a push and pull between staff and council, but rather a community effort asking staff's partnership to get this to the front of the line, because it is our one shot to get that shot in the arm to prove this process to work. And I think that is really important about the business community in this position is we are not asking our city to just dump dollars, but rather allow us to prove that we can recruit and have this be a wonderful center that people want to come visit, and then allow the natural entrepreneurial process to work. Airlines are not going to allow this market to go underserved if the market dictates airlines being here. We just need to get the first few seeds planted in the ground, and then we cultivate and we allow the fruit, the plants to bear fruit. And so I would end with just saying, supporting our counselors being very involved and helping staff to understand the timelines. I think Vanessa's done an incredible job there and needs to be recognized for that. And I'd like to recognize the other counselors who have been willing to link arms and hear from us. And it is probably challenging to have, and Alan, by the way, was key in this. I cannot emphasize enough, Alan coming in and saying, hey, Tom at the chamber, you don't make buildings, but I do. And here's what we could do, and here's how long it should take, and here's an option for how it should cost. And by the way, that looks nothing like what staff are showing. And I understand that the working with me ton, and you work with these best case scenarios, but this uniqueness is now. And everybody's saying, just do a little bit so we can see the fruit in the long run. And I think anything we can do, we need to hear as a business community how we can help and be supportive. And to our elected officials, know that we are here to be conduits of information. Have a good day, guys.
Yep, let me hit the mute button.
Alan and I have done the calling circuit with our local contractors and people who could assist in that. Please let me raise my hand. Please let me raise my hand to help. That's what's special about Salem, and that's what's special about the moment right now.
Tom, if I can, I encourage you to, I'm thrilled that you're meeting with Keith today. Keith is a listener, and I take it as a very good sign that, within days of me making the motion, directing the staff to start using our money and get this done, at least in terms of the permitting design, he came back to us with this resolution to officially appropriate the money at the earliest possible opportunity. A special meeting of council, which we don't even normally do, he made sure to add that to the agenda. So my impression of Keith is that when he sees strong support from council, he wants to work with us. So he doesn't have a construction background. I don't have a construction background. So I'm glad that Alan and others who have that expertise can talk to him, because that's not my strong suit. I hire people for that purpose. They hire me for a different purpose. So, yes, by all means, come forward with solutions. And I will do what I can to empower our staff. How can I lift those barriers? How can I persuade them to think outside the box? Is there any flipping way we can get the screening part built, designed, permitted, designed first and constructed first? And so far I've been told, no, it's not possible. And this is where I need technical expertise from people who know things about construction that I've never had to know in my life. It's like, well, I've seen remodels of homes where some things are done in phases. So from a layman's perspective, I know this is a little more complicated than that, but apparently according to Rich, it's not. So this is where I want you guys to be blunt, be straightforward, and help me help you. And, honestly, I would love to see if we can get some support from our other governmental entities. They will all benefit. Eventually, the staff will come back to us with a construction cost, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of zeros involved. And yes, will Salem benefit? Of course, but we know that anyone who flies here isn't necessarily going to only spend money in Salem here. We have the data. They want to go, they want to go to Willamette Valley Vineyards. They want to go to the coast. They want to go to the casino. So I would love to see, and if you have suggestions for how to start those conversations, I'd love to get, even if it's a little bit of financial support from those other governments, I think that would be helpful too.
Thank you.
Jeff, really quick before you go, we would be remiss today. There's a lot of heroes in this room that are working on this, but we would be remiss if we didn't recognize Representative Kelmore Green. She fought for this. She supported it. She grabbed $540,000 for City of Salem to purchase ground service